Hello and welcome back to India on 99.94. I'm Nikesh Rugani, your host, BBC commentator, alongside Sarah Warris of Wisden, as always. And today we're going to be discussing the fallout from the first test between Bangladesh and India in Chattogram. A nice, easy, straightforward, kind of, anyway, victory for India. So the World Test Championship dream is still alive. They still need to win all but one of their remaining matches. Another one to go against Bangladesh and then 4 to go against Australia. They can afford to draw one, lose one, whatever, but then they've got to win every other single one. So 5 matches remaining, 4 victories required for India to be able to get the amount of points and the percentage of wins to get through to that World Test Championship final for a second consecutive time. And Sarah, it was pretty straightforward, wasn't it? 188 runs in the end. I know it went into day 5 and Bangladesh showed a bit of grit in that second innings as well. But overall, a fairly satisfactory win for India again.
Yeah, easy win. It was a win which India needed, after all the disappointments since the Asia Cup, you can say. It was a relatively easier win. And all's good that ends well. Hopefully, they go on to then, win the series. The only issue remains Rohit Sharma's injuries. And this is something which, obviously, we didn't have the podcast then, but this is something which I had pointed out before, there were talks about who should be India's next all format skipper. And I had done a whole article on Wisden about how Rohit Sharma shouldn't be the skipper. Obviously, it's unfortunate his injuries. No one wants to get injured. But especially someone who always had a run in with injuries. He had these hamstring injuries. He missed the Australia series in 2021, the first part of it. And he's missed a couple of games in the IPL also. And so it was always, debatable whether someone like him, who's not 100% fit as much as we would want him, whether, he's the best person to lead the Indian team. And that remains the biggest issue for India. Like, he's missed the second test also. And I would still suggest, I know India would not want to change their captain before the World Cup and all, but I would still want, probably he's stripped down from test captaincy so that he can focus on ODIs. T20s also, I want him to give up captaincy. I don't know how you feel about that, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just coming into the test, obviously Rohit missing as well. That was the big headline alongside Jaydev Unadkat, who didn't get his visa on time because of some admin error or whatever it was. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, the guy's had to wait so long to make his mark on this Indian setup. Finally gets a call up. Looks like he's probably going to play in the first test if he was there, and doesn't get in the country. So those were the 2 big headlines. And yeah, it's again, a lot of the talk with Rohit missing out was exactly like you say, that he's getting on. He has struggled with these injuries. He's not going to be available all the time for all formats. And you're right, maybe he needs to step back from playing one or more of these formats, as well as just the captaincy issue. But look, as a result, KL Rahul skippered the side. I mean, look, we know who should be leading this side. He bats at number 4. Didn't have a great game with the bat, but was doing quite a lot of captaincy out there, Virat Kohli, wasn't he? Helping Rahul with field placements and all that kind of stuff. And we saw the general sort of angry celebrations and all that kind of stuff, which we love from Kohli, and geeing the troops up as well. Some great celebrations between him and the bowlers. And even when he was out there with Pujara in that second innings as well, the fact that he was so happy that Pujara at the other end got that 100 after so long, even though Kohli himself just literally all he did was come out to hold one end up and see Pujara through to that 100 as well, but so unselfish as well. So look, he should be leading the side. It'll probably never happen again. But Rahul, his captaincy, I don't really feel it was inspired. I mean, I suppose the one sort of blot on that performance was Bangladesh's second innings with the bat. and maybe the lack of urgency with KL Rahul in terms of bowling changes, field settings, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there were some incidents as well where the ball was being edged through vacant slip areas, and Rahul was late to react in terms of changing that field, or should he have had that particular field at a bigger cordon in at certain times, and all that kind of stuff. Just a very defensive kind of lackluster approach, I felt.
Yeah, tongue in cheek, but we are too harsh on KL Rahul because under KL Rahul's captaincy, Virat Kohli has broken his century drought in T20Is. He scored a century under KL Rahul in ODIs. Pujara has broken his run of non-century since 2019 under KL Rahul. Kuldeep Yadav is now back getting wickets under KL Rahul. So KL Rahul is kind of like a magic answer to whoever's not performing. Make KL Rahul the captain. But yeah, you're right. Especially day 4, I think it was. The commentators were also talking about this point that the fields were spread out. There was defensive captaincy from his part, and I don't think Siraj the bowling changes were very quick, and Siraj, he was bowling well, but then he changed. Siraj bowled a few overs before getting into his rhythm and all, so that was criticized a lot. And in the end, there was this comment in his press conference where he was like, my gut feeling told me to go with Kuldeep Yadav, who did take up 8 wickets in the match. So I went with him. But if I had gone with Akshar Patel, then, the whole media would have been after me that I took this step and it didn't pay off and all that. But actually, again, this is a comment which is unnecessary, according to me, because the media just goes after. It doesn't go after you, it just picks up points because we are here to comment on what's happening in the game. We don't unnecessarily troll people or just go after people for the sake of it. Those are trollers. Those are not, the media or the journalists. At least the sane ones don't do that. So again, a very unnecessary comment on his part, I would say, because it's yeah, he did well and we are praising him for that. But if it hadn't gone well, we would have criticized a Virat Kohli or a Rohit Sharma or whoever else. So just that part which, he took the dig at the media, which I found a little weird.
He's a man on edge, obviously. He's a man under pressure because of his own form. Let's talk about that then. The openers in this one, KL alongside Shubman Gill, who, let's not forget, Shubman Gill was the man in possession of this role until he got injured. He was the man down under in that famous series win in Australia. He was then, given that opportunity beyond that, but then injuries took their toll, and KL Rahul came into the side and did well in England in 2021 in particular, and sort of formed that solid partnership with Rohit at the top. And Shubman Gill's had to wait his opportunity, but it's Gill who's come out of this test shining with that century, wonderful century as well. First test century for Shubman Gill. He's sort of threatened to get there previously, hasn't he? He's almost got a kind of similar record to Rishabh Pant, the sort of miniature version of that record, where he gets into the 80s and the 90s and just gets himself out. But he has kind of been there or thereabouts before, but it's great to see him finally get over the line with those 3 figures. And okay, it's one match, it's one innings, I suppose you could say. Got 20 in the first innings, but it's just the manner in which he played and the class that he's got. He just oozes so much ability and confidence and gives you something a little bit different at the top of the order. He's very wristy, sort of maneuvers the ball into gaps, is able to score even when the pressure is on as well. And I think that's something which KL Rahul hasn't been able to do of late. And it throws up a really interesting debate now as to, if Rohit's back, there's your captain, then do you drop your vice captain?
Yeah, I don't think KL Rahul is getting dropped though. Yeah. Do you think Gill should play in the middle order? There are these talks that he could potentially be a better middle order batsman in England in the first test. He opened the innings, he did struggle against the swing, the conditions, and those kind of the faster bowlers. Against the older ball, he could be a little more lethal. He's good against spin also. So do you think
But who do
Gill
you
could be
drop?
better?
Who do you drop then? Shreyas
Maybe
Iyer.
Shreyas Iyer. Yeah.
But Shreyas Iyer has been the man in the hot form for 12 months. So I don't think you can. Why can't you drop KL Rahul?
But at the other hand, in this, I am team KL Rahul because he has done decently. Like against England, whatever it was, he came in with all the injuries, the last minute injury to Mayank Agarwal and all. But he did do well, like that 2-1 lead, which we are considering as a series win here. That was mainly down to the openers, KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma. And then again, in South Africa, he did score the 100, scored a 15 the next match. So it's not that KL Rahul, and these are all overseas, these are in tougher conditions. It's not like he's getting those runs in India. So just I think he in this match he just had that one failure, and the one failure in the third test against South Africa. So here I am team KL Rahul. I just feel it's a little unfair to drop him so soon.
Or do you drop, I mean, then you got one less bowler, but do you drop maybe Ashwin? Ashwin didn't do anything of note in this match, 1 wicket. I mean, these conditions were suited to somebody like him. You see what Akshar and particularly Kuldeep did in the match as well. I know Ashwin's not a wrist spinner, and it's different with comparing him to Kuldeep, but even Akshar did well with his finger spin in the second innings, and Ashwin just didn't look the threat, did he? Look the sort of the outlet for Bangladesh to score off. But the only problem with that is if you replace him with a batter, then you're left with just 4 bowlers because none of the top order bowls. So that's back to that age-old issue of none of the top order batters can roll their arm over. They're not like England with a Joe Root or somebody like that. So I think that's a difficult one. But yeah, I suppose, look, good points on KL Rahul. He has done well abroad. It's just at the moment, he just looks like a man lost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if playing more and more and more cricket all the time is going to help him. Does he need to get away for a bit? Just have a break from the side. Yeah. Rest him if you're the selectors, in inverted commas. He's played a lot of cricket. He needs a rest. So give him a rest. And, the one thing I will say is that you can have all of these guys in the side if you're playing abroad, maybe, because you might then, I don't know, you'd bring in somebody else. The balance of the side would look different, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have so many bowlers that can't bat, and maybe you find a batter that can, maybe you get a Hardik Pandya, and who knows, right? Just for the odd series abroad. So there are options, but I think Shubman Gill would find it'd be so tough on him if he gets dropped after this. So I hope that doesn't happen. Maybe Rohit could just sit out, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he could just sit out.
Age is catching up with him. He's now missing the second test also. So we are getting a lot of trolls.
So at least we'll see it in the second test. Shubman Gill back at the top of the order. It's just looking ahead to the Australia series. What happens then? Is the big question.
Rohit hasn't done bad either. He's been like since the Australia series, he's been wonderful at the top. He played 1 knock in against England at home. Don't remember which match. I think he scored 100 in that match on a very tricky wicket. So that was one of his best innings, which I would say. It wasn't 100. I don't remember, but it was, I think, in Chennai. It was a very tough wicket. Yeah. So he's not done, like, he's been decent in test cricket also since the Australia series. So yeah, tough.
He has. He's been brilliant. Times. And I was commentating on that series where they toured England and he got the 100 at the Oval. And, it was a brilliant series he had there. And obviously against Australia, like you say. So, this has been his best format really in the last couple of years, Test cricket. So if he's fit, he comes back. It's just a question of who misses out. Maybe it is going to be Shreyas Iyer. If Shubman Gill keeps scoring the runs at the top of the order, then maybe they move him or KL into the middle and do it that way. But we'll wait and see. But let's discuss Kuldeep Yadav. We mentioned him briefly there. We'll have a short break and then we'll talk about his return to form.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So Kuldeep Yadav then, 8 wickets in the match, man of the match, deservedly so, looked a threat really. I mean, there were spells that he bowled where literally every ball could have been a wicket, or you thought it might be a wicket, just the way he was bowling, the rhythm that he had, the big turn that he was getting. Of course, he got assistance from the wicket out there and the conditions suited him. But when there are conditions like that, it just shows you what a big turning wrist spinner can do in a side and how much of a difference that makes, because India have gone down the finger spin route really in the last couple of years. They haven't really experimented too much with that. It's been Jadeja and Ashwin, or if Jadeja's not there, it's Akshar Patel. And yeah, they've been successful, but this is another level, isn't it? This gives you a whole new threat.
Yeah. And another thing, you spoke about, KL Rahul maybe possibly sitting out, just getting some time away from the game. And I think that has worked wonders for Kuldeep Yadav. He was playing in the middle. He just looked out of sorts, like he didn't know what to do and all, and just some time away from the game, away from the national team, I think has helped him. I don't remember if you know this. I don't know if you remember this incident where I think it was Chennai. He played against England. He played that one match last year, bowled 12 overs. Obviously, the match where Akshar and Ashwin were doing brilliantly, and his speeds, Kuldeep Yadav's speeds were 80 kilometer per hour. Below that also, Akshar was bowling 90 kilometer per hour. Ashwin was 85, and Kuldeep Yadav kept on bowling slow, like even between 75 to 80 kilometer an hour. And Rishabh Pant behind the stumps was actually saying that "Tez dal bhai," which is like bowl quicker, please. So it's just that there were so many issues which he had to work on. I don't think he had a proper mentor in the Indian team, because it's very strange that after the 2019 18-19 Australia series, Ravi Shastri was like, you are our number one overseas spinner to Kuldeep Yadav, because he had picked up 5 wickets, I think, in Sydney in that series. And Kuldeep hasn't. This was his first overseas test match in almost 2-3 years. And he's played just one more test match before that, which was against England last year. So you can say he didn't.
But when they say overseas, they don't necessarily mean Bangladesh either.
Yeah. That's
it's
true.
out of the subcontinent. So it's not technically, it's overseas.
Yeah.
Although there's no
Good
sea,
point.
but you know what I mean? It's abroad, it's in a different country, but not different conditions. So he still hasn't kind of done that consistently, really, has he? And just back to that point, though, that Chennai test, I remember that, and that was off the back of that wonderful tour down under, or was it so wonderful for Kuldeep Yadav? He was the only man. I mean, literally, like they were getting ready to call up the physio and the conditioning coach into the 11, but still Kuldeep Yadav didn't get a game, which is really, I found that so strange. Obviously, it worked out brilliantly for the team and they won. But, Natarajan was playing Test cricket, right, in Australia. He was there as a net bowler. You're playing like Washington Sundar, well before he was ready to play in those kind of conditions as well. But they all stepped up to the plate and did really brilliantly well. But, it just shows you that the kind of mental stress he must have been under at being the only man in that Indian squad, the only man in the whole setup, really, who was a cricketer, who didn't get a game in Australia on that tour where everybody was injured or whatever it was. Kohli had gone home and, there's so many problems. And I don't think he was particularly managed well, not just because he didn't get a game, but just he was kind of left to it and nobody put their arm around him and sort of explained that this is why we're doing it. Don't worry, you're a big part of our plans for the future and all that. So mentally, the guy must have been absolutely shot. And not just that, but previous to that Australia tour as well, I mean, there was a whole period between sort of 17 and 19, those 2 years, it was Yuzi Chahal and Kuldeep Yadav. They were the two spinners. They were the spin twins. There was no more Jadeja Ashwin in white ball cricket. Then all of a sudden they just got dropped. And they didn't sort of, they would have just got dropped and left to their IPL, left to their domestic cricket. And I don't think they were managed well by the selectors, by the coaching staff, by the captain, albeit it was Kohli at the time. Somebody needed to put their arms around these guys who were still young at the time. Kuldeep's still in his 20s, 28 years old, right? He's still a young man. He's not like in his 30s coming to the end of his career. Even Chahal's just 31. He took it a little bit better because he was maybe at RCB at the time with Kohli, and he was the captain, and they had that relationship, whereas Kuldeep was kind of just left to it, almost thrown to the wolves. You deal with all this on your own. So massive mental baggage, and it took him a while, I think, to get over that, because even after that India series, the England series at home, like you mentioned, he got dropped after Chennai, didn't play for the rest of the series. Then he goes into the IPL, has a stinker of an IPL season. He's just, everything was going wrong for him. So for him then to show the mental strength and, credit to all those around him as well, whoever has helped him, whether it be friends or family, we don't know the full story at the moment, but whoever has sort of been there for him, full credit to them, because he has shown great mental strength now to turn it around. And he looks like a man bowling with his tail up, ready to take wickets, ready to sort of give it some proper rip, mix up his pace, which was an issue, like you say, before as well, and just looks a massive threat. And Ashwin's still going to play against Australia, you'd imagine, but he's put himself right in that prime position to be that second spinner now.
Yeah, and one more thing about Kuldeep Yadav, the lack of communication and all, even in the IPL, 2019, he was in tears when, Moeen Ali hit him for those sixes. I was there watching that match. It was a match where Kohli scored 100 and all, and I was there at Eden Gardens, and everyone was supporting Kohli, obviously, because he's Kohli, but then they were sad that KKR eventually went on to lose by 18 runs or something. They were chasing 218. That was a match which you can say possibly started this downfall, because Moeen Ali hit him for those sixes, and he's conceded, I think, Kuldeep Yadav 50 odd runs in his 4 overs. He was seen crying as he left the field and all that. I don't think he got a lot of support then from his skipper Ian Morgan also, because last year he didn't play a single match in the IPL. And Kuldeep Yadav went on to say that, there was no communication from him from the IPL team. He doesn't, and his exact words were, I don't know what, I can't really find the exact quote. Yeah, but it was something like, I don't know what Ian Morgan wants of me, or something along those lines. So there was no communication on that part also. So he wasn't playing for India, and then there was no communication in the IPL, and what the IPL team wants of him. There was no opportunity for him to, show the Indian selectors that he still has it in him. So I think that overall it would have been very tough for him. But yeah, wonderful comeback, this test match. He was getting a lot of drift. The speeds were optimum, and the star of the show. And I'm so glad for him, and I just hope this is the start of a new chapter for him. And also another reason why MS Dhoni is so hyped and liked by these players, because he and Chahal both have gone on record and kept saying that, how it was Dhoni, under Dhoni, how he would guide them. And possibly they didn't get that kind of support from Shastri or Kohli, or, even in his IPL team. So again, a shout out to Dhoni and, the man manager that he was.
Absolutely, yeah. The legend lives on for MS Dhoni. Right, off the back of this, we'll take another short break, and then we'll just have a brief look ahead to the second test.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app, and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So 188 runs, the winning margin in that first test. In fact, just before we look ahead to that second test as well, I mean, what a match it was for my friend Cheteshwar Pujara. What a man. What a cult hero. 90 in the first innings. I mean, I was gutted, absolutely gutted for him that he didn't manage to get the three figures in the first innings. You just didn't know if he'd get another opportunity in the near future to do that. It was, a fairly typical Pujara kind of innings, wasn't it? I mean, 90 off 203 is not one of his slowest knocks, but it's just a normal Pujara kind of knock. There's no sort of Bazball thoughts going through his mind. And then in the second innings, I mean, what an effort that was. He was going along very Pujara-like till he got to 47. And then he just hit beast mode, which he did actually. He went into that mode quite a few times in county cricket for Sussex. But, we've got to be honest, he was playing second division cricket there. And even in the white ball stuff, he did very well for Sussex in the One Day Cup. The 50-over competition was scoring, big runs, hundreds and stuff, over a run a ball, comfortably over a run a ball in some cases as well. But, there were moments even in that county season where he was like, scooping Shaheen Shah Afridi, who's no mug with the ball, a red ball in those conditions as well, scooping him for six and stuff like that, uppercutting him. And, so he's a man batting with a lot of confidence. Doesn't matter where you get those runs. He's a man who's been scoring a lot of runs in the last year, has forced his way back into this India side first and foremost, because he was almost done, wasn't he? He and Rahane were done. They were toast. He's come back and he scored 190 runs in the match. I mean, that is just brilliant. And the way he did it in that second innings, he obviously got told, look, we want to declare, we want to bowl at Bangladesh for 10, 12, 15 overs tonight. Get your 100 if you can in that time. Otherwise, we're going to have to declare. We're going to have to do sort of Rahul Dravid in Pakistan in, I think it was Rawalpindi? I can't remember where it was. Was it Rawalpindi where Sachin got his 194 not out? Sehwag, no, it was Multan, wasn't it? Of course. Multan, where Sehwag got his triple ton. Tendulkar was on 194 not out and Dravid declared. And they won the match with so much time to spare as well. So, it could have been a similar situation where Pujara was stuck in the 90s, unable to, but he just thought, no, I'm just going to go for this, man. Beast mode, hitting boundaries at will, coming down the track to the spinners. It was wonderful to see, and I tweeted this as well. He's just one of the genuine good guys of world cricket, and I think you can't help but be happy for him. Doesn't matter who you support.
Yeah, and one more thing, Ashwin, in one of his YouTube videos, he had said that he had placed a bet that if Pujara ever goes down the track, goes down and hits a wicket, hits a boundary of a spinner, then he's going to shave half his mustache. And he did that against Bangladesh. So, it's all eyes on Ashwin now if he does live up to his promise. But with Pujara, it's there were a lot of talks, about if she should be dropped and all. But I actually never wanted him to be dropped because the role that he has in the team, that's the role that he has. He has a strike rate of 38 since 2019, which is, just in the era of baseball and everything. You're like, wow, strike rate of 38 is terrible. But then that's the role that he has. He has faced 4,039 deliveries in 52 innings since then, which is 78 balls per innings. You take that, it's almost 160 balls per match, which is immense. And, that's the role which he has in the team. Often, since 2019, India didn't have the best of openers. They were struggling with openers. There was Prithvi Shaw in Australia, Mayank Agarwal, when they had their issues. So, it's almost like Pujara was a virtual opener, and he has opened in a few innings in England also. So, the conditions that he faced at number 3, often playing against the new ball and then just seeing off the new ball so that the others, they have a better chance of succeeding. That's the role that he has. So there was a lot of talks about Pujara and Rahane. I was always, Rahane had a longer stint. He didn't really do much, but I was always in favor of Pujara in the team. And yeah, he's genuinely nice guy. Josh Hazelwood won't agree because, all he's like, okay, I'm fed up of Pujara and all. And that's the effect which Pujara has. He, even in Australia to 2020-2021 series, he scored 43, 0, 17, 3, 50, 77, 25, 56. You won't really say, wow, if you don't look at the bigger picture, you will say, okay, he had a very middling series. And I don't know what the hype about Pujara is, but he's the one who tired out the bowlers. Hazelwood is the best person to say that. He took blows on his body and everything, and that's the role which Pujara has in the team. So I think down the years, like 50 years later, people will look at Pujara and be like, okay, yeah, he was okay. What is his strike rate? That time in Test cricket, they'll have strike rates of 150. You never know. So that'll be the average strike rate. You'll be like, wow, a strike rate of 38 in 3 years. But that's what Pujara is. He's such a team man. He just loves being there in the middle and soaking in the pressure. And yeah, he's your good friend, and congratulate him on my behalf if you can.
Yeah, well, his career strike rate is 44, which is there's so many people in the history of Test cricket who have brilliant records and a strike rate of 44. No one even looks at their strike rate because it wasn't a thing back then. So he's one from the old school. But look, I think you're right. Since 2019, there's been obviously more social media, and that just gets more and more every year. And people talk about this Pujara thing, and it's almost like a sort of a myth. I think that he just scores 20 off 200 balls all the time, and he doesn't, striking at 44, it's nearly, it's basically almost 50, right? That's when he's in top form, that's kind of what he does. And before 2019, that would be his sort of, striking closer to 50 overall in his career. So, you get 50 off 100 balls. It's Test cricket, right? It's quite normal. It's not like he's always taking the piss and, to getting those 200 ball 20s or whatever. So it's a bit of a myth. I think the reason it's been sort of exaggerated, that sort of, trait of his over the last couple of years, is because he's not been in the best of form. And even in that series down under in Australia, where he got those few half centuries and off a lot of balls, but tired out the bowlers, they were really fighting efforts. He wasn't really in any kind of form at all in that whole series. It was in rubbish form, to be honest, but it was just mental strength that really got him to those half century scores. He wasn't middling the ball. He wasn't hitting many nice shots. It was ugly, but it was effective. And that's kind of what he's been having to do for the last couple of years, up until this Test match probably, because he's just not been in any kind of form, but he keeps getting picked. And that's what a lot of people were frustrated about. But then he comes up with the odd decent score on paper, but, he wouldn't have middled many balls in that innings. And that's why he took 250 balls to get his 60 or whatever it might be. I just love to see him in this kind of form where he can bat like you expect him to bat in the first innings. And then in the second innings, if you need him to speed up, he can speed up, because he has always had that capability, but it's just not been his role. So, right, looking ahead to the second Test, obviously all eyes will be on Pujara once again. Any changes for you? Do they need to make any changes?
Don't think so. I think they'll go with the same 11. I hope Unadkat gets a chance, but I don't think. If he unfortunately didn't play,
is he there now?
I think he'll be there for the second Test. I hope. There are no reports coming in.
I've not seen anything say he's there. Surely he should be there by now.
He should. If he's there, I hope he plays. But I don't think India will, make a change to their winning, winning 11.
Probably not. One of the unluckiest men in Indian cricket, Jaydev Unadkat, such a great record. in Rajkot, of all places, where he plays most of his cricket on an absolute road. It's like a motorway there. We've seen test matches there where, I mean, was that where Karun Nair scored his triple?
I think so.
Was it? I can't remember. But it was that series where India got India playing against England in 2016. They got nearly 800. England responded with 600. It was just that's what Rajkot is, and that's why Jadeja's got 3 triple centuries on that pitch, and it's an absolute road. So for a left-arm seamer to have such a record like him in those conditions is absolutely outstanding. Brilliant leader, brilliant captain. Saurashtra, champions of 50 over cricket. They've won the Ranji Trophy under him as well. So just absolutely, brilliant guy. And hopefully he gets his chance at some point. But we'll wait and see. Right.
And hopefully Kohli gets 100. Yeah, that's been lacking.
That's the only thing. I mean, look, the fact they won the first test without any contribution really from Kohli or from Ashwin, their 2 most senior players and best performers over so many years, it shows you how good a win it was, really, and how the rest of the players have really stepped up to the plate in that first test. So well done to everyone for those performances. Well done to Kuldeep Yadav, Pujara in particular, Shubman Gill, the outstanding performers from that test. Hopefully more of the same from an Indian point of view in that second test, which starts on the 22nd, which means they'll be playing on Christmas Day, which I know is not a big thing maybe in Bangladesh. I mean, it's celebrated reasonably in India. I've been in India at Christmas, and people get in the spirit, but I suppose it's not quite as big in terms of religious significance, which is why they're playing. I don't think India. I can't ever remember them playing on Christmas Day before. Can you? Not in living memory, anyway. They might well have done back in the day.
On Christmas, yeah.
Yeah,
they played on 24th, 26th, obviously.
Yeah, they've played on 24th, 26th. Never on Christmas Day. And obviously when people are playing in Australia and you're watching from England, you watch on, the Boxing Day test would start on Christmas Day in the evening. So, there is that. But actually, wherever they are, they've never actually played on Christmas Day. So that'll be interesting. I wonder how many people will be watching that. And actually, it's quite a good thing because a lot of people, all they do in the West, right, on Christmas Day, they'll get together with family, they'll eat, they'll play games and all that. Then what do? You watch TV, right? You usually Christmas films or whatever. This will be cricket, Test cricket, which would be great, I think. So they might get more of an audience in the West than they usually do. But right, we look forward to that second test. But that's all we've got time for on this podcast. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.